Chatsworth, as we see it today, is a 17th century stately home in Derbyshire and is the seat of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire. Throughout their 14 generations, the Devonshires have been the wealthiest family in England. Chatsworth is also one of the most successful tourist destinations outside of London, averaging more than 500,000 visitors a year. Chatsworth was always designed to be looked at. The approach to the house was remodelled by Capability Brown to provide the best views, and the house is backed by a bank of trees. Chatsworth is often conflated with Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's house from Pride and Prejudice, and has outlasted and outshone other filming locations of the fictitious building to become the permanent Pemberley. Chatsworth has been welcoming visitors since the 18th century, opening its doors for 2 days a week in 1760. In the 19th century, this early marketisation of the stately home continued, and as we move into the 20th century, the system became more formalised, and the house opened as a paying destination to the middle and upper class public. There was even an early guidebook, written by the 6th Duke, which explained the house room by room. Chatsworth is a major tourist destination, welcoming people from home and abroad. It seems clear that the next step would be to project their image even further and to display the building and its contents on film and TV. Several TV programmes and 3 films have been shot at Chatsworth. The 2008 film The Duchess is a biopic of Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, who was married to the 5th Duke. The film is mostly set in the now demolished Devonshire House in London. Several stately homes were used to convey the opulence of this building on screen, including Somerset House, Holcombe Hall, Kedleston Hall, and Clarendon Hall. The old Royal Naval College was used as Westminster, and the scene set in Bath used the Assembly Rooms and Holborn Museum. Though Georgiana also lived at Chatsworth, the film only briefly shows the exterior due to Georgiana's apartments being occupied by the current Duke. The chapel was also used for the wedding scene.
This is incredible. There's the castle in Ireland, Bolton Abbey, Chiswick, Burlington, and Chatsworth, of course.
Of course.
Which is much bigger. But this is more like home.
After the film's release, there was an increased interest in Georgiana from visitors, and the visitor experience was altered to include a gallery with Georgiana's portraits and her mineral collection. Here we can see a direct link between film influencing a change in the perception of a site's history and the beginning of a blending of film and history in a historic space. The Wolfman, a horror film that is mostly sunk without trace, also used Chatsworth as the exterior of the crumbling Blackmore Hall. Starring Anthony Hopkins, Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro, it tells the story of an American returning to his ancestral house to find his missing brother. As he searches, he learns that a werewolf has been eating the villagers, and the film culminates in a fight scene resulting in the destruction of Blackmore Hall. Chatsworth's appearance was altered, with mud smeared on the windows, vines draped from the roof, and a dome added later with CGI. The fire at the climax was created with a 12-foot scale model. Apart from a brief mention on their website, Chatsworth do not publicise their connection to the Wolfman. Perhaps it is thought that the inclusion of horror fans would alienate their key demographic, and it doesn't match the Chatsworth brand. Simon Seligman, the previous director of communications, has said that it was done purely for the fee, and it is unlikely that a similar film would be shot there again due to Chatsworth promoting a more permanent narrative. Jane Austen's 1813 novel Pride and Prejudice has been the subject of many adaptations. The 2005 film, directed by Joe Wright, uses Chatsworth as Pemberley, the home of Mr. Darcy. Chatsworth is briefly mentioned in passing in the novel, but its inclusion in the 2005 film was the beginning of a blending of identities between Chatsworth and Pemberley.
The great thing for us about this film is that after this film comes out, we will be Pemberley.
This blending is continued in the unofficial sequel Death Comes to Pemberley. Despite cutting in several rooms from Harwood House and Castle Howard, Death Comes to Pemberley shows more of Chatsworth than Pride and Prejudice, and importantly, the violence in the series takes place away from the main house, leaving Chatsworth unsullied. The warm aesthetics of the shots are in stark contrast to the Wolfman. Some commentators have made a case for Austen basing Pemberley on Chatsworth. Donald Green, who published Persuasions, highlights the geographical similarities between the approach to Pemberley and the approach to Chatsworth. Other academics, such as Elizabeth Ellington, disagree with this view, stating that a capability brown landscape was a standard for many big houses. Since 2005, Chatsworth has outlasted other Pemberleys, and its introduction in Death Comes to Pemberley cements Chatsworth as Darcy's ancestral home. Chatsworth encourages this blending of identities, holding a Pride and Prejudice Regency ball each summer, where guests are encouraged to wear 18th century dress and are entertained by the Jane Austen dancers. This blending of history and fiction allows Chatsworth to be Pemberley in an authentic way, providing a validating experience for Austen fans. Austen fans on a day trip are also validated on the house tour and in the gift shop, where the prop bust of Mr. Darcy can be seen. The gift shop appears as a continuation of the sculpture gallery, allowing visitors to have their own moment with the bust as Elizabeth did in the film. The bust overlooks a wide variety of Austen merchandise, including smaller Darcy busts that visitors can buy. The Georgiana section of the gift shop shows a similar blending of film and history, as Keira Knightley is displayed as prominently as Georgiana's portraits, demonstrating the parallel images. There is no Wolfman section of the gift shop. The horror film with its belligerent landowner who lets the house go to ruin does not fit in with the other narratives Chatsworth emphasises. Chatsworth's story is no longer just about architecture and the Devonshires. Chatsworth has formed itself into a juggernaut of art, culture and heritage, which means that it has managed to remain relevant in the 21st century. By adopting the identity of Pemberley and blending history and fiction, the result is a core base of fans who continue to seek out the site. These fans are welcomed and validated by the events, visitor experience and gift shop, and posts on social media reveal that this is a perpetual cycle. Literary tourists, Austen tourists and heritage tourists all fit the key demographic for country house visitors, and even film tourists are welcome if they appreciate the right sort of film. Through this careful commodification of the story of Chatsworth and Pemberley, the estate has remained in the public's hearts and minds, and the endurance of still being recognised from a film produced 15 years ago speaks for itself.